Hi everyone, Ian here. Welcome to the Cavalry 1.1 beta demo video. So it's my intention in this video to take you through the new features. I'll start with the drawing tools, and where I'll end up is a little kind of mini tutorial where I'm going to show you how I made this particular animation because it uses a couple of the new features. So if you haven't got the 1.1 beta, you need to be a professional subscriber, and then if you just log into your account, you'll see a new beta tab next to download installers, and you'll have access to the macOS and Windows builds there. If you haven't also noticed, there is now an invite a friend underneath here where you can invite a friend and they get their first month of Cavalry free. Okay, so on with the show. So I'll start with the drawing tools, so let's do that. In a new scene, I'm just going to use the pencil tool. I'm just going to draw some shapes. And so something that we've done with the pencil tool is we spent some time making it so that it more accurately represents what you've drawn, and then at the same time produces fewer points. So you've still got your accuracy settings up at the top here if you want more points in your path, so a denser path. So switching to the edit shape tool, that's the A key, or you can just click the second tool from the top. There might be a couple of changes you'll spot instantly. First of all, the look of the points has changed. So Bezier points are now represented by a circle. If I hold Alt and click on this point to turn it into a corner point, you'll notice it turns into a square. And something else that you may notice is that the first point in a path has a yellow outline. So that's something else that's new. You also notice there that a tooltip turned up. So tooltips in the tooltips will appear when you hover over a point for a couple of seconds, or on a non-editable shape, they'll appear instantly. And what they tell you is the shape that this belongs to, and then the index. Now the index is important because you'll use that for constraints. So you can use it to look at what index you will attach your constraint to. You can turn the tooltips off up here if they annoy you. Something else is that if you double click on all the points in a contour, you'll select that contour, so you can just easily move that around. There's also a different way to do this, which I'll show you later. If you shift double click on a point, you'll select all of the points in the path as well. So that way you can just select a contour and then delete it or whatever, or move it, rather than having to get everything at the same time. So you can also select points with a lasso now. So if you hold down Alt and then click drag, you can draw a lasso shape, and that will select some points for you, so you don't just have the marquee. And something else that's new in here is the ability to, so when you draw pencil lines, in the past, the pencil creates shapes that have locked angles, so that you can see the angle is the same, but the weight is not the same. Or when this happens to one of your shapes, you can right click on the point and you can choose Enable Bezier Weight Locking. So that's new here. So this also can be used in reverse. So on any point, you can just right click and go Disable Bezier Weight Locking, and then you're free to just drag one point out again. So another new feature is the fact that you can now X click onto a Bezier to just delete that Bezier handle. So this now only has one handle. You can X click to drag that back out again. It'll drag out broken. If you Alt drag out, then it will drag out joins to the other Bezier. Okay, so there's a few of the things that are new in here. So we've got some great little editing workflow features that in the 1.1 beta. So I'll start showing those. One of them is the fact that you can join two contours together now. So if I select one shape and then Command on macOS or Control on Windows, select another, I can go up to the shape menu and I can go join contours, and that will join those two contours together. You're going to need to fix some Bezier handles yourself for that. But that will do that for you. Of course, if you wanted to, say, reverse a path, you can select this and go to the shape menu. You can reverse that contour, and that feature is also available in the contextual menu. I can show you another feature now. So another thing that we added was the ability to delete a point and split the path at that point. So if I delete this point here now, what will happen is that point will just go away. However, if I hold Alt now and then press delete, the path gets split at that point. So both the edges that were connected to that point have gone, and now we have two contours. You can see from the these yellow start points on both of those things, and yeah, so that's something there. If you want to close a shape, the same, it works the same as it used to. So you can just grab a point and you can just drag it over to the top of another point. The same works in reverse, like so. You can also open contours now. So if you go to the shape menu, you can go open contour here, and that will open the contour. for you. If I keep that contour closed, you see how we've got the yellow point here, which demonstrates the first point in the contour. I can select any other point on the contour and go up into the shape menu and go set first point, which will make this point here become the first point in the path. Now, this is really useful for when you're blending or morphing between shapes, because you can set the kind of the start point of the transition. So super useful to be able to do that. And now if I open the path, so if I go open contour here, it will open from this point here. So this being the first point. Okay. So I'm going to, I'm just going to go into a new scene here, and I will, I'll just draw a more interesting shape. When you're drawing, if you just go back to the start point, a circle will appear. You can let go, and then that will close the shape. The same thing works in the pen tool. So I can just can see the circle here. So that's going to create a closed shape there. Now in the edit shape tool, if I select two shapes, so I'm just going to select two shapes in the scene window here. You'll notice that I can select points on two shapes and move them at the same time. And there's another feature that we have now in 1.1, which is a transform tool, and I can now transform points using this tool. So I can just drag and move them around, or I can scale them from the corner. If you hold the Alt key, it will scale them from the central point, and if you don't, then it will do it from the opposite edge. So if you do from the top, it goes from the bottom and all that kind of thing. So that's the new transform tool. You can turn the transform tool off in the tool settings if you don't want to use that at all. Something else that's new is point snapping. So I can go into the snapping pop over here, turn on enable snapping, and I've got point snapping turned on here. And what point snapping will do is it will snap this point. You can see these yellow lines appearing, so it will snap this point to the other points in the shape. If you select more than one shape, it will snap to both of those shapes. So any shape that you select will snap. You can snap to. In fact, that also goes for shapes that are not editable. So if I create a non-editable shape here, if I select this, see that how this is non-editable, because I'm being told that by the tooltips immediately, non-editable path. Although the point indexes is still there, which is really useful. But now if I select all three of these, I can still snap to this point. You see that the yellow line there indicating that I'm snapping to the point on the side there. So that still works there. Okay, cool. Let's turn that off. Other new features in 1.1, we now have a capsule shape. If I click and drag in the viewport here, we get a new capsule. Two cool things about the capsule shape: it has start and end radii, so you can alter those independently. And the other thing worth mentioning is that the pivot point is placed in the center of the start circle. So if I rotate it, it rotates around that point, which is super useful. Next up, we've also added a skew transform. So on the transform attributes up here, position, rotation, scale, and skew. So I can now skew something in X, or I can skew it in Y. We've also updated, I should say, our noise shader. So if I right click on shaders and go add shader, you should see a noise shader here. If you do not see a noise shader here, it's because you have beta features turned off, and then you need to go into your preferences, turn on show beta features. Just check that box. And that's on macOS, the preferences in the Cavalry menu. On Windows, it's in the window menu. So right click on here, add shader, noise shader, and then something cool is the curl noise. So that's new. So we can grab the curl amount here and just scrub and scrub and scrub. Incidentally, if you can see that my mouse is kind of doing lengths across the screen here, this is another new feature, which is called infinite scrolling. So we can just keep going to the right and keep just increasing that value. And what you get with the curl noise is super cool, intricate patterns. I cannot tell you how much I love them. It's great. Another feature is the visibility sequence. So if I create an ellipse here, grab that ellipse and then just add it to a duplicator, I'm going to increase the area that these are being distributed over, and then let's go maybe 8 and then maybe say 4, something like that. And because I hate looking at gray circles, let's create an array from this palette and then drag the output from this palette onto the ellipse shape full color. That's better. Then on the duplicator, we have the shape visibility, which you can control with any number of behaviors or even a value array if you want to. But the new feature is this visibility sequence, Whoops, did I add it? I did add it, okay. Now if I double click on the visibility sequence so that you can see its UI, it has two attributes. It's very simple. You can just turn things off like so, and you can reverse this thing so they all turn on from that way as well. So not particularly complicated, it just turns things off in order or on in order. Something else that's new is that we have letter spacing, so you can now increase or decrease that if you want. We appreciate this isn't per character letter spacing, that is coming for 1.1. However, at the moment, this is new. So there's also the fact that we now have a string length utility, and this utility, if you plug a string into it or you type something, it will count the number of characters in that string. We'll add word and line counting later, but for now it counts the characters. So you can also connect a string into that if you want. So there are 7 characters in the word Cavalry, and this is completely Unicode safe as well. We now also have the ability to rename and reorder attributes on array utilities. So there are quite a few arrays. If I open the add element window here and type in array, you'll see there's lots of them. We've got value, value2, typeface, text string, they're the same thing, shader, mesh, editable path, color, asset, blah, blah, blah. There's lots of them. And what you can do now is you can right click on any of their indices. So that's basically any attribute where you see a number next to it. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. You can grab any of these, you can go right click, you can go rename, and we'll just call this one, let's call that red, like so, and then that's renamed there. And what you can do with these is you can also reorder them. So we can move this up to the top, and then that color now goes to the top. You can move them in both directions. So basically, if you can't move it down or whatever, then those options don't appear in this menu. So we can move this down one place if we want to as well. So that's how you can reorder and rename attributes on our array utilities. There are now a few additional ways that you can make something editable. So for example, if I draw a shape and I want to edit this. This isn't editable at the moment because I created it with the make editable primitives checkbox turned off. If I want to edit this, I can't. It's not editable. So if I try to click and drag one of these points, if I try to click and drag one of these points, I'm going to get a little modal up that says, this is not editable. Do you want to make it editable? So if you hit yes, you then get an editable shape, which is one way you can then drag around the points. So if I just undo those changes, you can also make something editable just by double clicking on it. So do you want to make this editable? Yes, because if you're in the transform tool and you double click on a shape, it will take you to the edit tool. So it's that same interaction will then now ask you whether you want to make something editable. And there is a final way, which is if the shape is in the viewport here, in the well, I think it's in any tool actually, you can now right click and go make editable, and that will make this an editable shape as well. So yeah, those are 3 new ways that you can make things editable. Hopefully that will speed up that workflow as well. The eagle-eyed amongst you may have noticed in that last segment that there were some new options in the right click menu that if I select some shapes, if I right click here, embed in horizontal layout, embed in vertical layout, embed in grid layout. What on earth do those things do? Well, we have a new layout shape which will take anything that you select and then we'll kind of lay it out in order. So for example, if I right click on this shape and I go embed in horizontal layout, these things are going to be put into a layout here. So here's our layout shape. So we've got padding on the left hand side here, and then we've got spacing, so we can space these items out if we want to. We can turn on auto spacing, so they will space out according to the layout size. By default, the layout size is connected to the composition, so 1920 by 1080, because those are my composition settings here, 1920 by 1080. But if I change these, it's all linked, so the layout will obviously resize according to that. Then if I turn off auto spacing, I can turn in spacing if I want to here. We've got some other options, so I can reverse the layout if I want to. I can shuffle the layout, so I can kind of put these things into a random order. And then, of course, just remember that the layout is live, of course. So if I change the size of one of these shapes, everything else will just kind of relay out automatically and put itself into into the correct position. Okay, so back onto the layout shape here. There are some other cool things about the layout. One thing is that you can have spaces. So if I add a spacer item here, what I can do is I can drag reorder that. So I'm going to put that before the green grey, which is that shape here. And what that does is it kind of puts a stretchy gap in the middle of them. So again, if I kind of resize my composition here, that stretchy gap changes to accommodate, to kind of like push the other items to one side. Now, of course, you can have more than one spacer if you want to. So if I add a spacer to the top now, the kind of space on this side and space on the right-hand side of these two shapes is going to be equal. To turn something off, you can either just use the I check here, or you can just get rid of it. You can kill it from the box. Okay, so there are also a few interesting things in this little list widget here. We've got some options. So I am going to just go, let's choose the yellow one. So this square here, so that's called yellow. If I open the popover for this, we have a vertical alignment drop down. If I change that to top, see that this will push the top, and then at that point, the top padding will have an effect on that shape. If I open this and then change it to middle, it goes where it was before, bottom, and then the other one is baseline. So baseline will put the bottom of this at 0. So you see there's the pivot of this shape. So it puts that at 0. And that's really useful if you're using text, because text will then scale correctly with the descenders dropping below the baseline. So if you take the text to baseline, and then the shape to baseline, then that works. In fact, why don't I show you that? So I'm going to grab these two spaces, let's get rid of them, and then let's add some text. So let's grab some text in here. We'll add the text to the layout. So to add something to a layout, manually just grab that, pop it on the end. So this text is now inside the layout. Let's grab it and pop it before blue. And then the text, as you'll see here, has been set to baseline automatically by the layout. So when you dragged it into the layout, it set it to its vertical alignment to layout. However, it didn't set its own vertical alignment to baseline. It set the vertical alignment to baseline here, but it didn't do its own. So that's something that's yet to come. It's a beta. And then with that change made, now when I scale my font size, you see that the baseline is sitting at 0, and the descender from the Y is being placed correctly below that baseline. So that is what that is. Okay, so let's just reopen the scene again. I'm just going to go into the right comp here. Vertical layout is exactly the same. I'm not sure I'll bother demoing that because it's the same. If I one of those layouts that is really cool though is the grid layout. So if I open the grid layout, just to help show you what's going on here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off keep aspect ratio. Okay, so the settings are basically the same as the horizontal and vertical layouts, with the exception that we have the cell margins rather than spacing, and we can flow columns or flow rows, so you can see what's going on there. But the reverse shuffle seed, that's all the same, but we can scale the shape to fit the cell if we want to. So we can scale to fit by doing that. We've got a multiplier in here. It's very much like the submesh distribution, but we can also keep aspect ratio or not. I am going to turn keep aspect ratio off for now, just because it's going to help you to see what's going on. Okay, so let's take one of these shapes, and we'll take the, should we take the red one? If I pop up the popover for the red settings here, you can see we've got something different going on here. We've got column span, row span, fixed position, and then a position attribute. So I can say that I want the column span for this red shape to be 2 in X and 2 in Y. So that's columns, so I want it to be 2 columns and 2 rows. So this shape now kind of takes up 2 columns and 2 rows, which is nice. And then I'm going to say it's going to be a fixed position. Now by default the fixed position is 0, 0, so it's going to take it to the first column, first row. But I actually want it to be the first column. I want it to be the first column, the second column, which is number 1 because it starts at 0, and I want it to be in row 1 as well. So this red shape is now kind of pinned to this location down here, and the other shapes will lay themselves out around it. So that's a way that you can do some really cool placements with the or arrangements with the grid layout. So there is still some stuff to come here. It's very beta. This was only just went in the last week, but some more alignment controls are needed for the grid layout. But hopefully you'll see the potential here. It's extremely easy to use. You just drag things into you just make a layout or drag them into the layout items here. And that's that. You can have spaces in the grid layout as well. It just creates an empty cell. That's all it does. And you can add as many kind of rows as you want and columns as you want. And then notice this is still in column 1, so this column, and then row 1. So that's shapes there. And so it's created gaps to the left and right because there aren't enough other things to lay out in there. Okay, so it's time for a mini tutorial. This is just going to show a couple of the new features off. I've made myself a giant C basically, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it editable, and then I'm going to, in fact, what I'll do is I will turn the fill off and turn the stroke on just to make what I'm about to do easier to see. Then I'll hold down the S key, and then I'll click on these two ends because I'm going to split these two ends basically, and then I'm going to hold down Alt and then the delete key, which is going to delete the point and then its two connected edges, which opens this path. Then I will select this point, and then I'm going to hold down the Alt key and then hit delete, which is going to split this into two contours. So the first one opened the path, and then the second one actually split it into two. So you can see that we've got two separate contours here, and then I'm going to call this one, let's call this shape inner C actually, and then I'm going to duplicate it and go outer C like so. Let's delete the original text shape, and then on the inner C, what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click on one of the outer contour points and just hit delete. And then on the outer C, what I'm going to do is double click on one of the inner points and then hit delete. So the outer C only has the outer contour, the inner C only has the inner contour. Cool. So on this inner C, let's Alt double click to get its UI up, and then we will click the plus key, and then we'll go down to blend shape. If we open the connection popover, double click on the blend shape to get its UI up. All we need to do now is just drag the outer C into the input shape here. So we go outer C into the input shape, and by default it's growing like that. So let me deselect it. You can see that we can now blend between the inner and outer shape. Only something's wrong, it's folding over. So if I turn on the inner shape and the outer shape, let's turn that back to 0. If I select the inner shape and the outer shape, both of them at the same time, notice that the start point of the outer C is at the top and the start point of the inner C is at the bottom. That's not what we want to happen. We basically need them to be in the same direction. So that this path is counterclockwise and the other path is clockwise. So we need to make it so that they're the same. So I can just select a point on the inner contour here and go shape, reverse contour. So now you can see that the start point is at the top here, which means that when I blend between the two, it's blending correctly now. Cool. So let's just get rid of the edit points tool, turn off the outer C, and then we've got this, which is great. Okay, so let's select the inner C now, create a duplicator. On the distribution, we'll make a point distribution, and what I'm going to do with a point distribution, in fact, I'm just going to, what I'll do is this duplicator, I'm going to move it so that it's in the middle. The C was slightly offset as a piece of type, so I could correct it, but for now, let's just use this. And then on the duplicator, let's have 15 copies. Let's have 15 copies. And then on the blend shape, let's add a stagger onto the strength. So we'll go add behavior, stagger on the strength. Hopefully you can see what we're about to do. Put 100 in here. And then we've got this. Okay, so there's no animation or anything yet, but we've got this kind of like staggered blend like you could do in Illustrator. But something super cool in Cavalry is the fact that this is a graph, and we can kind of manipulate this in a way super easily. In fact, what we're going to do, this is so easy to do, in fact, that we're going to animate this. So these points here can be keyframes. So you can select a point in these popover graphs. You see the little diamonds in here. You can click those to keyframe this if you want to. I'm not going to keyframe this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to connect an oscillator to them because I am lazy. So yeah, there you go. And we'll oscillate it between here. So that's x 0.5. Maybe up here as well. So okay, so let's just grab this top of this window and drag it, which will make this window permanent. And then let's add an oscillator, like so. So add an oscillator. Okay, cool. And then we want values of say 0 and 0.5 on the oscillator. And then let's drag that onto the y-axis. Okay, so now this is animating like this. Okay, that's cool. And I want to duplicate the oscillator, and I'm going to load up the UI for that. And I'm going to reverse this. So I'm actually going to go 0.5 to 0. And then this one I'm going to connect to the X, like so. So we end up with that happening as our animation, which is pretty cool. And then this is basically what I had in the little video at the start. Only I also used a couple of other useful things. Let's go onto the inner C here. We'll go into the stroke. We'll just use this palette here and drag an array onto the stroke color just so we get different colors. In fact, actually, that's a terrible idea. Let's not do that. Do get a color array. What we'll do is we'll create an index to color. Let's create an index to color. So we'll go index to color like so. And what we'll do is we'll load a gradient. Let's load this gradient here. Let's load this into this gradient. So select the gradient attribute, click on the menu up here, and then go set gradient from palette, like so. And then what that'll do is it'll load all the colors in here, which is dead handy. And then what we can do is if I connect this to the stroke color, we see we've got this nice gradient. I think I had it stepped in the other video. So if I right click on this and go set all to stepped, then this is going to create a stepped effect. Only the last color is not used. So what we can do is we can right click and go distribute stops, which is going to put them all in the correct position. And then now this is kind of like what we had in the opening video, except for the fact that this the stagger is meaning that the outside and inside blend shapes aren't moving. And so what I did with the video before is for the scene before is I used a shape visibility. So I used a visibility sequence. So I can add a visibility sequence in here, and then if I'm just going to like turn off the top one, so like see how I'm just getting rid of one shape here. Now you see how the outside is now breathing, which is cool. Now I need to add another one because I want the inside one to go as well. Now you can't actually connect two things to one input. I mean, it doesn't work in a graph. You can't connect two things to one input. So what we have is we have this really cool behavior that does this for us. So what I will do is I'll create this new something called a behavior mixer. So if I create this behavior mixer here, the behavior mixer is basically allows you to have multiple behaviors and then combine their effect. So I need to add a second behavior mixer and a second index for the behavior mixer. So I've got a 0 and a 1. And what I can do then is let's drag the visibility sequence onto the first one. And then we need another one. So I'm just going to duplicate this visibility sequence and drag it onto the second one. And then on the second visibility sequence, I need to hit reverse to get rid of the first point. And then what I need to do is turn so something else is going to go wrong in a second. Well, I can just drag the the behavior mixer, which is controlling our visibility. I can just drag that onto shape visibility now, and nothing has happened, and that's because the blend mode's here. So what the blend modes are doing is they're adding all of the things that are on, and if you add up all of the things that are on in both of these behaviors, then that's all of the points. So we need to set this second one, I think, to min, so that we get rid of the inside and the outside shape. So now the inside's breathing and the outside's breathing. So that's it. That's kind of how I achieve the effect using the behavior mixer and the visibility sequences, and then using the new kind of edge delete, point and edge delete. And that's it for the 1.1 demo. So hopefully you like what you see. Feel free to get in touch with us. We're on Discord, and so you can let us know what you think, report some bugs. It is a beta after all. And also feature requests, more than welcome. So hopefully we will speak to you soon, and I'll see you next time.